Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers here on the East Coast of the United States of America, just south of one of the greatest countries and the most courageous people on this planet, and that's the nation of Canada and its people. And I'll qualify that statement in a moment. Folks, I'm going to get right to it. We may be a little bit longer than 20 minutes because the information that I received over the past 48 hours with regard to how the Trudeau government has been handling this situation is just beyond belief. But the first thing I want to do is address something to one of your elected officials, one of your ministers of parliament. I'm going to give you his name, and I'm going to read to you what he has put out all over the internet. And I'm going to answer some of the subjects that he brought up. In fact, I have some questions for him. Now, obviously, he's not going to be on, and I understand they may be in session voting on this Emergency Powers Act, but his name is Mark Geretstan. Mark Geretstan, I might be pronouncing it wrong, and he says that he is a liberal minister of parliament for Kingston and the Islands. But here's the part of his description that is troubling. You talk about provoking people. You talk about provoking law-abiding citizens. You talk about provoking the nation just south of you, Mr. Member of Parliament, like the United States of America. When you say publicly that you are the autocorrector of conservatives who give out misinformation, you're talking about me. You're talking about millions of Americans who are giving out information that is factual. Not only the citizens of your country do you insult, but you insult the citizens of my country. So therein lies one reason why I am involved and why other Americans are involved. You call yourself a diplomat when you put something like that out. To do what? To bully us, to intimidate us? Well, we're going to make some corrections tonight over some of the statements that you have made. Let's talk about this, folks. This was astonishing to me, and I did show this piece of his text to police officers in this country because I wanted to get their reaction over what he said, why this Emergency Powers Act is so important. In his words, he said that the Emergency Act is not about deploying the military. It involves a number of measures to provide resources and tools to ensure, listen to this now, to ensure proper law enforcement. So I'm talking to police officers in America about this, and we're wondering, well, what tools is he talking about? This Minister of Parliament, I mean, are you kidding me? Let's talk about the tools of pepper spray being sprayed into the faces and the eyes of the very, very well-behaved protesters, if you will. Now, look, I've been a cop 38 years. That's a great tool when you're facing violent criminals, when you're facing people who want to assault cops. You were facing people, and I saw it for myself on several videos, people standing in front of the police telling the cops they love them, that to support them. And that was met with what? A tool that you say is necessary under the Emergency Act, pepper spray. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about the high-powered rifles, all right? The high-powered guns. I saw them for myself. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. You're facing your own citizens with these type of weapons, intimidation and bullying. At who? Not violent criminals, at law-abiding citizens who were protesting very peacefully. Now, look, I get it. You need to wear a helmet. You never know if some maniac in the back of the peaceful protesters is going to throw a brick or something. That's okay. You know, that's okay. I mean, I have no problem with helmets and maybe some face shields. But when you're spraying and using pepper spray at people, I've got to tell you, I'm waiting. I was waiting on the videos to see the assaults on the cops. I was waiting on the videos to see people throw things at cops. That did not happen. I mean, the whole world saw this. And I've got to tell you, absolutely astonished over how the police were used to react. And then I think what topped it off for me, folks, you had the pepper spray, the high-powered visual weapons, but what really bothered me and a lot of cops in this country were the use of horses. Now, look at, well, I believe in the use of German Shepherd dogs. I believe in the use of horses. But against who? Against criminals, violent protesters, violent criminals. Let me give you an example, Mr. Minister of Parliament, or Member of Parliament. Let me give you an example. I want to maybe teach you a lesson on what tools you need in what type of protest. And I'm going to add that police chief. I had his name here earlier. Police chief of Ottawa. He's the acting chief. I forget his name. That guy should be fired after his explanation as to what he thought needed to be done with nonviolent protesters. Here's how this goes. You all saw what happened in our country over this past year. Seattle completely taken over by criminal elements, not peaceful protesters. We know it was taken over. Minneapolis Police Department, police precinct being burned down to the ground, and the government officials thinking about surrendering. Think about this, folks. This wasn't widely publicized, but it's true. But about surrendering police headquarters to the protesters. And then you've got people being shot, cops being shot, ambushed. All this is going on in our country. And unfortunately, we have liberals here, Democrats, socialists, communists in control at the moment, who told the police to stand down. There was one incident where on the Mexican border, the border patrols there were accused of whipping illegal immigrants. You heard that, folks, right? Whipping illegal immigrants crossing the border illegally. They weren't whipping them, folks. You know anything about horses, you know anything about whips, those kind of whips for the horses. But here's my point. So all this is going on in our country, and nothing is being done with these violent criminals. And then we see the most, I'll tell you, I don't know what other words to use, but most decent human beings on earth protesting what? They're protesting a government that wants to take away their freedom and liberty. And what comes in? I mean, it comes in, it was like Tiananmen Square. I'll tell you, folks, a free country, a government that does that to their people in a free nation is a government that becomes the terror, not the police. I mean, not the people. The government becomes the terror and not the people. Now, I understand that there are cops in Canada that are quite upset over this. There's not much they could say, but it's their supervisors, right? It's their police chiefs. We've got sheriffs in this country that are in Florida and some out west who are standing up for the Constitution of the United States. And they're telling these politicians to go take a hike. And maybe that's what we need is some people in government and in police force that have guts. That acting police chief in Ottawa, I remember. This is what bothered me, folks, above all of this. So the chief over there in Ottawa, the acting chief, I believe his last name is Bell. I'm not sure. If it's wrong, please forgive me. He gets before the cameras and he says to the people of his city, the people who were protesting, we're going to find you. You know, he made it a point that, well, we're going to identify you and we're going to make the appropriate charges. So what are you going to do, Chief? You're going to knock on everybody's door who was at the protest. You're going to drag them out in front of their children. You're going to put handcuffs on them. You're going to charge them. You're going to freeze their bank accounts. You know who does that, Chief? The chief of police in communist China. The chief of police in Beijing. That's who does that. The former police chief in Moscow, going back during the Soviet Union. Folks, we've got a problem in our hands here in America. You have a bigger problem there in Canada, and we've got to put an end to this problem. We can and we will. And I'll share with you before the end of this broadcast how we're going to do it. But the fact of the matter is that you want to embarrass a country, you want to inflame and enrage people, not only south of your country, but around the world. That's right, Chief. That's right, Mr. Member of Parliament. I've received emails, and I'm sure you have, but you'll never admit it. And by the way, the press out in Canada, I hope you're covering this. I don't know what you're doing. Not much of the press is covering it down here, but we're certainly sounding the alarm. When you start getting emails from Canadians to begin with that are looking for political asylum, we have a senator, I believe in New Mexico, who is allegedly introducing legislation to give people asylum. I've gotten so many, I'm up to like almost 2,000 emails now from Canadian residents that want to flee the country. And they're asking me if they could get hooked up with some real estate people in some state that is free. This is tragic. This is tragic. And on top of that, when you get emails from Switzerland, Finland, Iceland, Greenland, you get them from Australia, you get them from Germany, France. I mean, you name the country, I've gotten an email from who? From who? From freedom-loving people who have looked at the Canadian people, the people, Mr. Member of Parliament, who are in your country, who behaved well, who behaved with decency, who behaved with dignity and honor and grace. There was no violence committed by these people. The violence was committed by you, Mr. Member of Parliament, and by your Prime Minister. Violence against who? Violence against all of us. Against who? All of us, and against freedom and against liberty. And maybe, just maybe at some point in time, a political leader will stand up in America or in Canada or somewhere, just like, by the way, the a leader of the European Parliament. I don't know if many of you know this, but I did see the speech. Stood up and told Mr. Trudeau that he ought to be ashamed of himself, and that what he's doing is what amounts to what a dictator does to his people. So what we are seeing in Canada and what we are seeing in America, but we have the ability to stop it, and we're going to do it in November. But our friends, our neighbors, our wonderful people who love freedom in Canada are going to need our help. And by golly, we're going to have to get it to them. We're going to have to get it to them within the framework of the law, within the framework of their law. Okay, we're not going to be violating laws. The people in Canada really haven't done anything that I believe deserves any type of treatment that they have been given by their government. But we'll see as we move forward where we're going to go. Now let's talk about this member of Parliament. He was talking about he wanted to correct me and others like us with regard to the freezing of bank accounts. All right. Now this is what he says. All right. He says that the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. All right. Well, let's get to this before that. He says that the government cannot seize bank accounts, that the Emergency Power Act, people who believe that the government is going to come in and freeze their bank accounts is absolutely not true. Okay, that's what he says. Well, sir, I'm going to call you a liar. You're a liar. You're an absolute liar. Do you think that we're fools? Do you think that the people of your country are fools? And I'm going to share with you why I'm going to call you a liar. I don't normally do that, call people a liar publicly, but you're deceiving and you're lying to the people of your country. First of all, you're saying that this act gives your law enforcement agencies banks of findings, and it remains the responsibility of the bank to make the final decision of freezing accounts. So in other words, what you're saying is that you're going to go tell this bank, all right, that Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so were out at a protest, and you're going to add some value to what you're saying, and you're going to tell them that, maybe you might want to think about freezing their accounts. So we're not telling you to do that, but it's something you ought to think about. Now, do you think your citizens are dumb? That's like in this country. You get a knock at the door. The IRS comes to you and says, well, we think you better do A, B, and C. We're not telling you have to, but we think you better do it. And, by the power of the office, by the power of the people who can destroy your life financially, do you think that the banks are not going to freeze the accounts? They sure are. So my question is, what are you going to tell the banks, Mr. Member of Parliament? What are you going to tell the banks about these people? Are you going to tell them they were at a protest? Or are you going to tell them they did something at the protest? Or are you going to do what some of the politicians in this country tried to do and they got destroyed with regard to parents going to Board of Education meetings? Our own Department of Justice labeling parents fighting for the freedom and liberty of their children at schools. Our DOJ decides to label them terrorists. Mom, you're a terrorist. Dad, you're a terrorist. Truck driver in Canada, you're a terrorist. Small mom and pop businesses in Canada, you're a terrorist. Is that what you're going to tell them? Because the only way on earth can a bank, in my view, freeze a bank account of anyone is that if it could be proven that the money is being used to topple your government or to commit some sort of terrorist act through financing. That is why I call you a liar. Because what you're doing is playing politics. This is called political gamemanship. Why don't you be a man? Have enough courage and stand up if you believe that this is what should be done, and tell the people that you're going to go out and freeze their accounts because you support Trudeau and you support a socialist communist agenda. But that, folks, is what he said. He's just simply saying, it's not up to us. It's not up to the government. It's up to the bank. So you've got the seizing of the accounts, and then they're going after people in Canada that have made donations to the truckers. All right. So now, why? Why? The question was asked, why in the world are you attempting to seize their donations? And his explanation was that, well, these donations that are going to the protesters and the truckers may make matters worse. Well, what matter? What matter is being made worse if they're sending 25 bucks, $10, $15, or the widow's mite, maybe a few dollars out of her pocketbook to help a cause that she or he believes in. So, Mr. Member of Parliament, would you please explain to everyone what matters are you talking about? These matters that you're going to bring to the bank or what? You know what? Here's what matters. What matters is that you, your colleagues, and Mr. Trudeau is turning your country into a communist country. This is how communists work. Communists work this way. Beijing works this way. Moscow in the past works this way. It's probably getting pretty close to working that way again. And now, what do? You're going after people's livelihoods. You're going after their bank accounts. You're going after everything they own. My goodness. The only countries on earth that I read about, saw with my own eyes in my lifetime was, let's see, Tiananmen Square. Remember that, folks? Back, I think it was in '96. Those people were protesting what? They were protesting in favor of freedom and liberty. Well, instead of horses, there were tanks. And maybe that's next. Is that a tool, Mr. Member of Parliament, that you're going to use down the road if things really start to get out of hand? Are you going to bring the tanks in? Are you going to bring the military in? Because that's where this is headed. Now, you may ask, well, what are we to do? What are we to do? I'll tell you what you should do and what you should have done in the beginning. In America, when we have large protests, and they get pretty violent, and that violence should never take place. Anybody who commits violence, believe me, they should be charged and they should go to jail. But here's the issue. What politicians don't want to talk about on the liberal side, on the socialist side, and on the communist side is, how did we get here? How did the Canadian people get to the point where they had to express their views about freedom and liberty in the peaceful manner they did? How does it get to that point? It gets to that point because you, as politicians, don't listen. You don't listen to the people. You listen to special interests. You listen to the power brokers. You listen to the people who can feed the money wherever it goes, whether it be to you personally or to your campaign accounts. That's all who you listen to. But sooner or later, you see, the pressure builds up, and then people have to react. So leads me to this one conclusion. When you, Mr. Minister or member, I call you Minister of Parliament, Member of Parliament, the fact of the matter is that the root cause of the problems you're facing, the root cause of the problems that you're blaming on the people of your country, actually is your problem, your root cause. You caused it. You caused it because you decided that you wouldn't listen to the people. You decided that you would support mandates that are equal to mandates that come out of the former Soviet Union, that come out of Cuba, that come out of China, that come out of any communist country. Instead of listening to the people, sitting down and saying, hey, look, let's talk about this. You're not talking about a military confrontation. You're talking to your citizens. And by the way, let me get back to Mr. Police Chief over there in Ottawa. We've worked so hard in this country and around the world. You ready for this one? I think you're an acting chief. Well, you might think about retiring after tonight's broadcast. You talked about how you're going to get your cops to go after these people. Now, I'm one of you, all right? I'm a 38-year retired police officer, lieutenant, and a commander, so I know my stuff, all right? For years, maybe a decade or so, we've worked hard with communities all over the country and around the world, and perhaps even some of the fine police executives and practitioners in your country to do what? To build strong police community relations, very strong police community relations, so that when issues begin to surface, it'll be the cops that will do what? They will do their job in protecting and serving the people, not the government, not the whims of a socialist, not the whims of a communist, not the whims of a dictator, but they'll go out and serve the best interests of the people. So here in America and around the world, for years, we've deployed cops into neighborhoods, and they've made great relationships with people from all walks of life, all kinds of diverse cultures. And look, things aren't that well now because we have the problem that the people in Canada have. We have people in office that really folks don't belong in office. They're serving their own self-political interest. Hopefully that'll turn around again, and I believe it will. But let me get to my point. So instead of telling people you're going to hunt them down, find them, arrest them, identify them, my goodness, we don't do that anywhere in this country. As a matter of fact, in this country, sadly to say, and I say this because I want to make a point, criminals don't even get arrested anymore. I mean, you get a ride to the police station, you get maybe a little ticket to show up in court, and off you go. Now, I'm not talking about traffic summonses, rapes, shootings. It's pretty bad here. But folks, here's my point. That's how bad it is here without law enforcement and with heavy-handed dictatorial policies and the police supporting that type of behavior from the government. I mean, there's something not right here. You get it, folks? It seems to me, on one end in America, you got the socialists and communists just letting everybody run wild. In your country, the people not running wild, all right? The people protesting in your country who are decent, who are working within the framework of the law to the best of their ability, the government's coming after. So, folks, police chief, Mr. Member of Parliament, and Mr. Trudeau, send your people here who want to protest. We welcome them. Come and protest all you want, folks. We'll sit down and we'll have coffee with you, for goodness sakes, because you did it right. And the one thing I can't underestimate is the whole world is watching. The whole world. And they looked at Canada, and I, for one, of being one of they, when I talk about, I'm looking at these protests and I said, look at these people. They're not violent. They are protesting the way it was supposed to be. You protest within the framework of the law. You protest with dignity, with honor, with pride for what you're doing. And you have the whole world watching. And you're saying, look, this is the way it should be. You didn't harm anybody. The people of Canada didn't harm anybody. But maybe they harmed you, Mr. Member of Parliament. Maybe they harmed you, Mr. Police Chief. Maybe they harmed you, Mr. Trudeau. In fact, they did. They harmed your reckless agenda. So now you're voting tonight. I think at 8 p.m. I could be wrong. I think there's something going on tonight in Canada with regard to this Emergency Powers Act. I could tell you this. For those of you who are members of Parliament who may be watching, I know some of your staffers are, I'm just going to share with you, you're going down a very dangerous road. You are going down a dangerous road that, you know what, start thinking about the flame that you're going to ignite, not just across your country, but I tell you, you might ignite it in this country and you might ignite a flame around the world because people are fed up with your political shenanigans. They are just fed up. No more do people want to be enslaved to corrupt politicians, morally corrupt and corrupt in every other way, I'm sure. They want to be set free just to live their lives, to raise their kids in a country that's free, where their liberties are not hindered. But you're going out there and you're passing laws that are doing what? They're doing what Hitler did, what Mussolini did, that Pharaoh of Egypt did in Old Testament days, that Saddam Hussein did. And so Canada, because of you, not the people, because of your ridiculous actions, Canada is being added to that list in the history books. Yeah, in the history books, where children are going to wake up and they're going to read one day what you as elected officials did to their parents and their grandparents and ultimately to them. You see, this message I'm giving all of you in Canada is a message I've given to many, many people in speeches across this country. And now the American people are taking action, folks. They're taking action. And here's how we're doing it. And I implore you to think about this. Yes, we have a convoy, a huge one, I believe, is going to Washington, D.C. It'll be peaceful. It'll be within the framework of the law, as it should be. But here's the greatest convoy that you could create, the greatest march, the most powerful protest that you could demonstrate to the people who are running your country. And that is create committees, create organizations, get involved in the political process by taking control, complete and total control from a grassroots level and get people elected to your school boards, your city councils, your state governments, and your federal government that are doing what? That are going to work for your best interest. I believe years ago that was hard to do. It isn't, because I see it being done now in America. San Francisco, they threw Democrat liberal school board members, they recalled, threw them out of office. We're throwing assemblymen, state representatives, congressmen, senators. They're getting all tossed, folks. They're getting tossed one by one. See, it's going to be a long process, but it'll be a successful one. But you need to organize, work within the framework of the law. Let me tell you something. These politicians, whether they're in Canada or America, they don't care about our protests. They get a little nervous if things get a little reckless, like in Canada. Those guys that are running your government, they got to be a little nervous now when they got the whole world watching and ready to come down on them. But what they do fear is the power of the vote. They've taken it for granted that you and me and my country, that we're just going to turn away, walk away, not get involved, run out of gas. It's not going to happen anymore. You should be proud of yourselves in Canada. Stand up. The heartbreaking letters that I've received. I received letters from people in your country, in Canada, who escaped communism. One fellow, I mean, you talk about an emotional letter, was involved with Lech Walesa in Solidarity in Poland, fought his way out, fought his way against the communists, and guess where he ran to? His beautiful nation, Canada. He ran to Canada to get away from communism. And now this poor fellow has to face something that he escaped from years and years ago. And in his letter, he said to me that he fears for his children and his grandchildren. Folks, don't let these people scare you. Don't let these Trudeaus and these members of parliament and these elitists scare you. There is nothing to fear but fear itself. And believe me, you have the intelligence, you have the ability, you've demonstrated it, and you have the power to stand up and within the framework of the law, just fight these tyrants. The Pharaoh of Egypt, you know what he tried to do with the Jews, what he tried to do with the Israelis? Let my people go, said Moses, right? Moses, just a little guy in a community who came out, and remember the story was he couldn't even speak, right? Let my people go, said Moses. And all, as time went on, every tyrant, every dictator, it was always the call of let my people go. And you know how we let my people go? We do this. We let freedom ring. That's what we do. Every time you are on the internet and sharing these videos and information that you're getting that's factual, and sounding the alarm, you're sounding the liberty bell, the bell of liberty. Let freedom ring. And that's what we're all about. And that's why at the end of the day, and I've said this to many of you in many of the letters that I've responded to, that freedom will always, always, always come to the top. Just remember this, folks, and I'll close out with this. To begin with, we the people, I want you to remember this when you get a little depressed and you get down and you're under great, great distress. Just remember this. Remember the history of the world, of your country, of your countrymen. Just remember this, folks. We the people, that's you and me, we the people who are fighting for freedom and liberty for years, since time one, we're still standing, aren't we? We're still here. Generation after generation of Canadian, of American, and of those great freedom lovers in any country that you're in watching this live broadcast, we're still here. The lovers of freedom are still here. Where are the tyrants? Gone. The tyrants come and go. But those who love freedom and liberty, we are still here. We are still standing. And we're going to stand forever and ever and ever. Because, folks, we are a free people. We are a free people standing on the God-given gift. And I emphasize this all the time, the God-given gift of freedom and liberty. It is a gift from God, not a privilege from a government or a government leader. And you know what? If it is a gift from an awesome, powerful, righteous God, no crook, no corrupt politician is ever going to be able to take that from us. Never going to happen. As long as we stay focused on what we are to do and how we're going to do it, I'll tell you, folks, we win and they lose. And finally, after all I said tonight, one of the most powerful weapons we have is what is referred to in this book I'm going to show you. Now, I'm not a preacher, right? So I'm not trying to preach anybody. I've been in politics my whole life, but I've learned something very powerful about being able to stay in politics and being one who can at least share with people what power really is. It's right here, folks, right here, right here. It's all here. That is known as the sword of the Spirit. So when you're down and out, when you're distressed, you get this sword right here and you raise this sword and you say, you know what? I'm really feeling down. I'm out. I'm fighting for my country. I'm fighting for my children. Lord, I need your help. I need you to fight for me. And help will come. Help will come through his grace, through his mercy, through his guidance, through his love. It will come, folks. We're fighting a physical political war, but we're also fighting a great spiritual war. And one night I'll get into that. But the fact of the matter is, be proud of yourself. Man, I'll tell you what, years from now, your children and grandchildren are going to read about this period of time, and they're going to say, Mom, Dad, Aunt, Uncle, Grandma, Grandpa, what did you do when they threatened our liberty, when they threatened our freedom? And you're going to be able to say something that those government leaders causing this problem will never be able to say. You'll be able to say, I took the Canadian flag, and in America, I took Old Glory, and I proudly stood up. I stood up for it, fought for it, prayed for it, and we won. And son, daughter, how I know we won? You're standing here in front of me with that flag on top of the building we're in. Thank you so much. Thank you, folks. Stay strong, all right? Stay strong. I'll pop in during the week. Continue to email me. There's our website. I've got 2,000 emails. Just let them come in. I'm doing good. I really am. We're answering these emails. I'm personally answering them, and I just want you to know it may take a month, maybe even a little longer, but you're going to get an answer from me. Thank you so much. Keep on keeping on, as they say. Stay strong. Have faith. And remember, let's keep everything in prayer. God bless you. God bless Canada and all the other people around the world who are fighting for freedom. Remember, within the framework of the law, that is so important. And God bless you all, and God bless the United States of America. Good evening. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers.